All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Here's Johnny.
Vanity. Definitely my favorite sin.
I am the devil, and I am here to do the devil's work.
The power of Christ compels you.
This is my boomstick.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Good evening and welcome to Shiver, a horror movie podcast. We are your hosts.
I'm Daniel DeBona.
And I'm David Ulloa. And back with us again. We're going to make this an annual thing. So we got to think about which one we're going to do next year. Is Gaby and Peter. Welcome.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Thanks for having us back. Super stoked
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah, so for those interested, if you end up liking this episode, Gaby and Peter were both on Trick or Treat last year, so you can go back and listen to that. Unfortunately, I mean, we did it last year, so we're not going to do it again this year. But watch it because it's pretty damn good. Yeah. So this year we're doing something that they suggested last year, which is Halloween 3: Season of the Witch. So I was going to go into why I think this movie is often underappreciated, but Peter was about to do that off air. So I think I'm going to let you do it, Peter.
Well, right off the top, like we should basically, in case people haven't seen it, give them like a general, idea of what the movie is. So I think to answer your question and to do that, Dave, the idea is that this is a sequel to Halloween 1 and 2, and yet not. Right. In the sense that it is, if Halloween 1 and 2, the original ones, are kind of like a two-part story, split up over two movies. This is meant to be, for all intents and purposes, a new chapter or new story in a series of films titled Halloween. So it was a marketing problem, right? It's a fun 80s creepy, weird Halloween movie that it actually is about Halloween.
Yes.
And and unfortunately, because of the way it was marketed and did not have called Part 3, Halloween 3, and did not have a Michael Myers story in it, it's like people just, I would assume, just shut off. Like it was like, it's like saying, hey, we're going to Taco Bell and they're all out of tacos, but they have great fried chicken. You like fried chicken, but you didn't come here for that. And so now you're fucked up with it. You're like, I was in the mood for tacos. So I think this is like
going to the Kentaco Hut on Flagler.
True. You can do that. Yeah. But so to me, this movie is unfortunately, it carries all this weight that has nothing to do with the actual movie itself. But the movie is a super original story, and it deals with, the origins of Halloween or themes and legends around Halloween. And it's got such a great 80s vibe in so many ways. Everything from like the music is fantastic. The designs are super of the time. The cast and the choices and the script writing and the lines delivered. Yeah, there's one scene I just watched. I just watched right before this. There's the scene where, I don't want to skip ahead too much, but just scene at the end where Tom Atkins, who plays Dr. Chalice, the main character, he's watching something terrible happen to one of the kids, and he just does this.
Oh my God, dude! I have a note specifically that just says fists. Dude, like this movie, it. What's amazing about this movie is while it does absolutely encapsulate so much 80s, it never crosses that really thin line that we always talk about when something becomes like offensively 80s. Like it is very much just a moment in time movie. You watch this and you know that it was filmed in the early 80s. They didn't have to do the thing where they were pushing that it was in the 80s, because you just watch it and this movie reminds me a lot. And it's funny because as I was beginning to really get into horror and kind of like dig down into it, the first franchise that I made this kind of comparison with was Blair Witch. So while the more accurate one would be to say Book of Shadows, if suffers from the Season of the Witch effect, I always kind of reverse it. This is a decent little fun Halloween horror movie, but it got packaged wrong. The same thing happened with Blair Witch Book of Shadows. There's a decent movie within Book of Shadows, but then when you try to cram it into the Blair Witch universe, things get wonky. And that's what we got here. You know, this is the idea, I suppose, was that after John Carpenter did the first two of Michael Myers, this was supposed to become an anthology film series where they were just going to drop a Halloween movie like every year. And so, yeah, like you said, the first two are like part one and part two of the same story. They did something similar on American Horror Stories recently, where every episode was supposed to be kind of standalone, but the first two were the Rubber Woman. But then it was like, all right, now we're done with her. We eventually will loop back around because we're American Horror Story. But yeah, man, if you had just released this and called it Season of the Witch, I really think that this would be a movie that people would look back on and be like, oh, God, I remember that movie from when I was a kid. That's so great.
And by the way,
I think it's happening already.
Yeah, there it is.
People are going back to this and saying, you know what? We were too close to it when it was released in 82. Let's look back on it now, because now it's at that point where it's like that neo vintage, you know.
The merch is too good, David. We have to like the movie because the merch is too good. Dude.
But here's the thing. Oftentimes movies that have reached that age where it's like 30 to 40 years old, they're reassessed. And sometimes I think that it's appropriate. And sometimes I think, no, the movie was just garbage. And then sometimes I go back and I watch something where everyone's like, yo, this is one of the greatest movies of all time. And I'm like, I don't know about that. Gone with the Wind, I think, is a perfect example. I will die on the hill of Citizen
I know.
Kane.
I just wanted to pluck that nerve. I have no problems with it. I've done that to you before.
So I guess my question is, you know, knowing what this is, you know, that John Carpenter's original idea was, you know, a new Halloween movie every year.
Which we got robbed of that, by the way.
We were, yeah. And I think a lot of that has to do with Halloween 2. Yeah. I blame Halloween 2 because if there had only been the original Halloween and then it jumped to Halloween 2, Season of the Witch, and it was something else entirely, the audience would have accepted it. They would have gone forth. But because it's like, oh, well, the guy was dead in the first one. You want me to accept that he's dead now? I'm not buying that, you know? And then sure enough, he's fucking alive in part 4. And they don't even address it. It's just, he's in this hospital now, you know, and all the better for it because part 4 is fucking awesome. So does it work as a movie? Does it work as a Halloween movie? Does it deserve this like reassessment that's happening of the movie now? Gabby, what do you think?
I don't know. I am like a
be honest, be honest.
I'll be honest. I mean, it's not my movie. Like, I watch it only because my husband is obsessed with it, and I've had to come to terms with the fact that it's going to be part of my life. I really love the iconography of Season of the Witch. Like, the 3 masks are so iconic. It's hard not to want to watch the movie just based on that. And I think that there's a lot of redeeming qualities for this movie. Like, I know we're going to talk about it later, but like, the death scenes are incredible. I mean, if you consider like what we were getting from Halloween 1, which was like you got 1 drop of blood here and there if you were lucky, and then you get to Halloween 3 and people's faces are being obliterated by lasers. Like, we really ratcheted it up for this one, and yet I still cringe every time I see this movie because the acting is so fucking bad that it's get ready for Gabby's approximate knowledge of movies. Whoever the guy is that looks like Tom Selleck that plays the main character.
Tom Atkins. Tom Atkins.
Fuck that guy.
Oh, my God.
The worst, dude. Like the whole seduction of the daughter of the first victim, like all of that shit made me want to fucking pluck my eyes out. But you can't. I guess like I have to love it now because I associate it so much with my husband and how much he loves it and the masks and the whole thing that I kind of like give it a pass. But if it was just me, no, absolutely not.
Yeah, have you seen any of his other work? Like, have you seen The Fog? Have you seen Night of the Creeps?
I saw The Fog when I was very young, so I have less than approximate knowledge of that movie. The other one I haven't seen. The Creeps.
Oh, you should watch Night of the Creeps. I mean, that's a classic 80s horror movie.
Yeah, this movie, I think when you look at, does it deserve this resurgence that it's kind of getting? And when I saw that note, I tried to take some time and do a little Googling and look around, and you're absolutely right. People are coming back around to it and acknowledging that they were wrong to judge it the way that they did. Does it deserve it? I mean, it deserves it in the aspect. Nobody should be going back and be like, this is an amazing movie.
Right.
But people should be going back and watching it and definitely saying that they were far too cruel to it when it first came out. Because if nothing else, this is one of the most fun movies that we've done on this show to date. But this movie is just fun, and that's where you like, on top of the fact that yes, it's happening at Halloween and there are kids trick-or-treating and all of that, you get it's just fun to watch. It's like grown-up Hocus Pocus.
Yeah,
yes, that's exactly what it is.
Dude, if
it passes the Halloween vibe check.
Yeah.
Like, I want to feel like I'm in the season, and that's what I'm watching matches the season, so it definitely passes there.
When the Beetlejuice hair is working too. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, like, number one point is make a list of how many horror movies that you like to watch during the Halloween season actually have anything to do with Halloween. It's a small list.
Yeah.
And even take place during Halloween. It's a little bit longer, but it's, so to me, this movie, if you recontextualize it as like a vibe more than anything else, of course the acting's bad. Like, I know the acting's bad when I'm watching it, and that's kind of part of it for me in a weird way. Like, it's the same way if you take the horror aspect out of it. There's a lot of 80s movies I just like, knowing they're not great and they wouldn't pass today's standards, but it's a certain atmosphere, the music, the way people speak, the fashion, all the kind of thing. You put it on, and it has yes, and it's like,
it's interesting you went Porky's. I was thinking Commando.
I was thinking Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
And all of these are right answers.
Right. Yeah. This is the two sides of our podcast right here. I go Porky's, he goes Commando.
But yeah, so it's like it's a good one to have on. I don't know that I sit down and just watch it like this, and that I enjoy it as much as just having it on. And it's satisfying in that way. But like, yeah, it's one of those things. Like, I think the way people used to talk about watching Rocky Horror, where when this goofy thing happens, you do this thing, and when this goofy thing happens, this movie is filled with those types of things. And funny enough, having was that
midnight showings and shadow castings of Season of the Witch here for it.
This movie, funny enough, I don't think there's one drop of blood in the whole movie.
I kept like waiting, like every time somebody would it's like, oh wait, nope, they're one of the android robot things. Oh nope, he just like internally shattered his skull.
Right.
I think maybe when they ripped the hobo's head off.
Yeah. Oh, fair enough.
Yeah,
so yes,
I think that's the only time you see blood, but it's also so dark.
Yeah.
What about when you see that lady's face like caved in from inside? Like that.
Yeah. It's just not dripping blood splattering or anything like that. And the kills are creative. And man, I think the terror of the creativity of those kills, and by the way, being like actual witchcrafty curse vibe kills, kind of does it as well.
What about you, Dave?
To me, that's what really gets me about this movie, and the reason why I keep coming back to it time and time again is because it feels like Halloween. Unfortunately, I only watch this movie during October because, like, I may put on Halloween 4 randomly. I may put on H2O randomly. The first one, of course, it's a classic. I'll throw that on whenever. I'm grilling up some fish and I'm watching Halloween, but this one only gets put on in the Halloween season, but I think it feels so much more Halloween-y than all the other ones. And I think that assessment of it's adult hocus pocus is perfect because laugh if you want, but I think Hocus Pocus has one of the best Halloween vibes.
It does.
All
Oh
movies.
yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
I mean,
you.
and it's cheesy and it's childish, but I fucking love it because
No,
of
it has the vibe.
nostalgia aspect to it,
Yeah.
but also that vibe. And I think this movie has that Halloween vibe to it.
Yeah.
It also part of why I kind of went to Commando is the inventive kills. You
Right.
know, the special effects are fantastic. I watched this one with my son, and he's like me. He's got like a kooky sense of like horror, and he told me as we were watching this, because he saw 1, he saw 2, and then we saw this one, and he was like, dude, this is a lot more brutal than the last couple ones. I said, yeah, it is. You know, so it's scary for it. It was the first one where he felt scared watching the movie.
It's unusual. It's like off-putting.
And
more than anything.
it is. Yeah, I think it's the off-puttingness of it. You know, to me, it's got like sci-fi and it's got horror and it's got fantasy because it's like magic and shit, right? It's like magic and technology being mixed together to commit mass murder. And like how can you not get behind a movie that does all of that in one? Is it good? I don't know. Do I like it? Fuck yeah.
Yeah, that's the defining line for this movie, right? Like, is it good? Maybe. Do I like it? Yeah, I like it. It's a lot of fun to watch. And you know, as we talk about the hate that it brings on, we've got to just acknowledge the fact that what brought that on is that this is a story without Michael Myers, like Peter said at the top.
Not completely, by the way.
Not completely.
His face shows up. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
You got like 2 seconds with him.
But for the most part, I mean, this isn't Haddonfield. This isn't Michael Myers stalking through the night. This isn't you know, all of that. But what we get here is it's a weird story that somebody wrote this and had a lot of ideas kind of banging around, and they mixed them up. And I mean, does it work as a scary story for you, Dave?
Scary it is. I think because there's this sense of mystery to it. Like it almost feels Hitchcockian in a way where, you know, you've got this older guy and this beautiful younger woman, very Hitchcock, right?
Right.
Is it appropriate today? No. Do I have to put on my nostalgia glasses to watch it? Yeah. And they're unraveling this mystery that they kind of just jumped into. It's very noir. It's very Hitchcock. And this movie plays with light and dark so much that I feel like if you were to throw a black and white filter over this thing and release it kind of like the way that George Miller did Mad Max Fury Road, or they did with Logan, I feel like you would have almost a different movie. And it would work. It would really, really work. Because I think that there's a lot of this movie that reminded me of, go with me here, the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers. The fact that it opens up with that scene of, you know, some guy ranting and raving, and then it closes with that scene of some guy ranting and raving, and he's in that same location, you know. And then there's these people that are not people, they're robots, you know. So I feel like there's maybe some inspiration from there. And I know that Carpenter is an old school sci-fi guy, so maybe there is something to that. To me, I feel like the story doesn't make sense, but I don't think it's supposed to make sense.
Wait a minute. Explain yourself.
Well, I mean, there's things that happen, and it's like, but why? And there's things that happen, and then I like, but how? But here's the thing: is that none of that really matters.
Yeah.
This is not one of those movies where I'm sitting here and going over it with a fine-tooth comb. Like if I were to be confused at any point in Hereditary, I would stop the movie and say, okay, what the fuck was that? Because the movie takes itself very seriously.
Right.
And because it wants you to take the movie seriously. But that's not this kind of movie, right? I go back to the Commando thing, right? Commando, you shut your brain off and you watch Arnold go fucking commando on a bunch of people, right? There's a bunch of guys dressed up like Latinos getting blown the fuck up for like the last 45 minutes of this movie, and I'm here for it. It's awesome. This movie's kind of like that, where it's just shut your brain off, accept that there's this premise, right? Like Superman can fly. Okay, cool. I'm in. He's got like ice breath. Okay, cool. Still in. He's got laser eyes. Okay, don't push it, but I'm still in. You know, like as long as you keep throwing things at me and they're cool enough, like I'm willing to accept it.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like that Fast and Furious thing where it's like, does this make sense? No. Do you want to watch that car go fast? Yeah. You know, and I think that's kind of what this story is. It's a story where it's like, I guess they're gonna drive out to this place together and investigate this thing. I guess they're gonna get invited on a tour. I guess, you know, it's always like I guess this thing's gonna happen. So does it make sense? No. Like I feel like as absurd as Michael is the living embodiment of evil may be, that story works better than this one does because you're never questioning anything except the basic premise of he's the living embodiment of evil, because everything else makes sense. He sees Laurie, he kills Laurie or wants to kill Laurie. And, you know, sure, they introduce new things as the movie series goes on, but that's a pretty simple thing. And I think it works within those confines. This is the opposite. It's really complex and somehow still works.
Go ahead, Peter.
Well, I was going to say another thing I would posit is imagine if this, instead of coming out the way it did, was like part of Creepshow or part of like, you know, later you got John Carpenter's Body Bags, a horror anthology, like tighten it up a little bit, you know, make it like a 30-40 minute like story and put it in one of those. It would be like one of everybody's favorites, you know,
right? Like that Showtime Masters of Horror they did. You make this 44, 47 minutes.
Yes, tighten it up, and then just if it came out like that, I think that would have changed too. But to what you're saying, I feel like it has this other aspect to it where it's about killing kids, and I feel like that's a ballsy, bold take, and it kind of elicits the response that you get from Tom Atkins when he's finally like, get the mask, you know what I mean? Like it reminds me, like what you're saying, of Body Snatchers. It reminds me of Soylent Green. It reminds me you know, The Blob, things like that, where it's like, it's coming for everybody. And, you know, because nobody believes how implausible it is. No one's taking it seriously, but it is that amazing, like, thing that not a lot of movies go for. Like, we're going for the kids. You know, that's crazy because none of the adults you assume are going to wear it. And it does this thing where it alludes to how many kids die. Cause by the end of the movie, you assume a lot of kids die.
Yeah.
Based on how it happened. What did he do? He got out to a couple and it's too late. They were already wearing it. You know what I mean? Like, you can assume that the good ending where all the news stations believed him and pulled it, or you can assume that like they didn't get to it at time and all the kids' heads got fried with snakes and stuff. You know, it's crazy in that regard too. Like, it doesn't necessarily tell you what happens, but you can kind of.
What about you, Gabby? Did it scare you? Do you think it's scary?
Only Tom Atkins' lines against all the women.
Only his like fucking naked body on top of that poor young woman. Anyway. No, you know, the first time I watched it, I kind of like was half-heartedly watching it because I knew I kind of already knew that I wasn't gonna like it, and I was sort of just watching it to make Peter happy. And then I rewatched it again this year with a friend of mine who were like trying to get her to watch more horror films, and so I kind of like really put myself in. I'm like, all right, now I'm gonna watch it. And I think what got me was the killing of the kids, which is like, it's, you know, everybody who watches horror films that likes horror films usually has like a hard line. Like, this is
right.
This is the one that's going to fuck me up. Right. Like, for some people it's torture. For other people, it's like whatever, like animal abuse, whatever. Right. Mine always seems to be killing kids. And to me,
that's a solid one.
Soft.
Yeah, I think that's a solid one. Fuck off. And you know, I think that killing kids in horror films feels more modern. So to see it happening in a film that was from the early 80s, like, kind of fucked me up. I'm like, oh shit, they legit. Very mean. Like,
yeah.
They killed that fucking kid in the
little
room
buddy.
with parents watching. Like, that's the part that fucked me up. It's not that the kid is dying. Fuck them kids. It's the parents. It's the parents. The parents watching their children dying, and the horror and the despair of watching your child die in front of your eyes. That's my hard line. Like that's what, because it feels so real and visceral, and like you can only imagine like what that feels like.
The comforts did suck though, right?
Terrible family. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
No, again,
no one deserves that. That's not what I'm trying to say. All I'm saying is like if we had to lose a family, like,
and potentially we lost Tom, whatever his face is, 2 kids as well.
Yeah.
Right.
We don't know because the mom was like, "Don't call here again. You're a piece of shit. Whatever. I'm gonna do what I want." So probably those kids died, but also fuck them kids. They were annoying as shit from the beginning of the film. I don't like these masks. I want the ones that are on TV. Fuck you. How about say thank you to your dad who like went out of the way to get you anything.
Now
like,
he's clearly a shit father,
dude. I was gonna say like
he's fucking terrible. He's fucking terrible because if he's calling his wife to say he's going to a work conference and she's like, "What's her name?"
Yeah,
you know,
these are 2 of the most
dude. I can't with him. But no, it wasn't scary. Like the premise of like the these modern day witches, going through the ceremony and that part is not in the least scary. What's scary to me is the concept that parents are going to watch their children die.
Yeah,
and that is fucked.
That's what knocks it out for me too. When I look to find what's scary about this, it's that it really does channel something that I think everybody can find from when they were a kid, which is that Halloween where there was that one costume that you knew everybody was going to have, but that is one of the reasons you had to have it because it was the costume that year. I remember it's one of those things you think back on and you kind of like, man, I was kind of shitty, but my parents still, busted their ass to make it happen. I remember the year that, one of the years Ninja Turtles was huge, but it was like the Halloween costume had to be a Ninja Turtle. And when we were looking at costumes or whatever, there was one that had the big like plastic shell, and there was one that was just the bodysuit. And I really wanted that one with the plastic shell. And like my parents managed to get it for me. And that was like a big deal. And you look at that and you go, man, this is so scary because not only did they kill the kids, but it was such a perfectly crafted plan to get to the kids, to create so much buzz for so many years that you had to have one of the 3 Silver Shamrock masks. When they go to, excuse me, when they go to the Silver Shamrock factory, you see a couple other different variations. So you start to wonder, okay, is it every year they release 3 different ones? And you've got to have one of the 3 that year. And they talk about how they went from nothing and now this guy's selling them all over. And that part, the plan is so scary because it's so dastardly. Like that plan of not just how to kill the kids. It's one thing to just go into a house and kill a family. It's another thing to craft over the course of years the perfect plan for killing,
them to kill themselves.
Yes, and then for your hands to be clean of it, like and
I don't know about clean, but like,
well, right, but I'm just saying, like,
having to physically kill somebody,
right? Exactly, like his hands are physically clean. But that part is really scary. I think that the hoops they jump through to get there. Yeah, Gabby, you're right. It's laughable. These modern witches who are upset about the bastardization of Samhain and where this has become.
By the way, we finally get the correct pronunciation.
Yeah.
Because as much as I love Donald Pleasance, like he is legit one of my favorite actors. He says Samhain.
Yep.
And Samhain sounds just so much more sinister.
It does.
Scary, yeah.
And it's bastardized so much that they steal a piece of Stonehenge, and then he just
that's my favorite
piece.
part.
It's a big piece, and then he goes, "You don't want to know what we went through to get it."
And this is why I say the story doesn't make any fucking sense, because it's like, no. How did you get it? I need to know how you got that over here without the whole world fucking noticing.
Dude,
that some of that gets so far off the rails.
Yes.
But Dave, you're right. You've just gotta You've
go
just got to
with it.
turn your brain off.
Yeah.
And by that point, I'd seen the woman's face fried. I'd seen the dude explode in the car after pouring the gasoline on him and not flinching. I'd seen that, I'd seen so much. At that point, I was like, yeah, okay, sure. They stole Stonehenge in the dark of night, a piece of it, and we don't want to know how much trouble it was. Like that shit.
Many Bothans died to bring us.
There we go.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's just the delivery of that line. You want to give him a pass, where he's like, "You don't want to know." I'm like, "All right, fair enough." But what one of the fun things about the movie for me, still, like the best thing about the whole movie are the masks. I love the masks, and as somebody who likes to collect stuff that's at least looks like a prop, like I like stuff like that's like 1-to-1. You know what I mean? You can get the props from the masks. From the movie, like they're just masks for like, not a ton of money. And when the whole movie based on the mask, like how much more Halloween can you get? When they get to the point where they're in the factory you're talking about, that's actually the factory where the masks were made commercially, like in real life. Like Don Post.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, like Don Post, like the great mask maker.
Was it Don Post?
Yeah, yes.
Oh,
and
that's fucking awesome.
That was his studio, like really was. And they show it in the film. And they were versions of the mask. I believe that the witch and the skull had already existed. Like he used to sell those masks, and the pumpkin they created for the movie. Yeah, so it's like that kind of stuff I love too, because it's almost like the symbol, like what Gabby was saying before, like the iconography and the symbolism kind of like surpasses the film. And when you actually watch the film, you see that the trick-or-treaters that are like used on every bit of merch, they're only in one scene at the very, very end. The specific three, there's tons of kids wearing the mask throughout, but the specific 3 kids that are on every piece of merch, they're in one scene at the gas station. By the way, at the gas station in the middle of nowhere, and some mom drives her kids out to trick or treat at this gas station. They're only in that scene, and I feel like that's just a testament of the design work, the iconography, and that's part of what makes, in my opinion, movies like the original Halloween great. Like all our favorite horror movies, there's got to be some kind of visual component to it to make it next level. You know what I mean?
Well, and what's we were talking about the marketing scheme that was part of his evil plan. What's amazing about that is how those masks were so ubiquitous in that universe that the kids were just using them as part of other costumes. It's like, oh, I'm an admiral, but I'm an admiral with this skull hat. It's like I'm a
the fucking
I'm a clown whose head is a pumpkin because I had to have my Silver Shamrock mask. That shit was next level.
I love that, man. It's so good, dude. It's just, and I think that's part of why it's had this like renaissance, is because you look back at it and look, there's a lot of movies that we like from that era that are not good.
Right.
But we love them.
Yeah.
I mean, Killer Clowns is a movie that I remember people saying, it's the worst movie ever made. And that was the reason you wanted to watch it, because it was the worst movie ever made. And you watched it and it was like, yeah, it's bad, but it's a lot of fun. And it's the same thing. It's like, we like so many of these movies that people are looking back and like, the Season of the Witch belongs in the group with everybody else, dude.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about a few of the characters in here. But I want to take a little bit of like a more critical eye to some of these characters. So Gaby only knows Tom Atkins from this, but I know Tom Atkins as like people talk about like Scream Queens, but Tom Atkins is like a Scream King because this guy, I mean, we're talking The Fog, we're talking about Night of the Creeps. He was in the My Bloody Valentine remake. So but he's got quite a horror pedigree going here, but he's not the only actor here. There's a lot of great performances. So accepting Colin Cochran, it wasn't Colin.
Connell.
Connell, thank you. Connell Cochran. Accepting him, because I do want to focus on just the villain later. Is there anyone who stands out as like overly eccentric or like just a really fun character, or someone where you're like, fuck that person, I'm glad they're dead? Daniel, I guess we'll throw it to you since we've been throwing it to each other.
So it's does anybody stand out? I mean, they're all they're all at this same level of 80s trope character, right? So you get and it's a high level, but you get some characters who are definitely memorable. But man, Dr. Chalice, dude, he's such, like you said, he's obviously a shit dad. We don't know how long it's been since he's seen his kid. He shows up with these dime store masks. And his wife, obviously him and his wife have no sort of like, healthy co-parenting relationship, because when he calls and
what's that?
Throw away the mask, throw away the mask. She's like, fuck you. You just don't want him to have the mask that I bought, like that. So, but if I could point out one thing that was just so, can we just take a second to acknowledge the fact that this guy had already gone at least one round with the woman who was still suffering from trauma of her father dying a horrific death before he goes, wait a minute.
How old are you?
How old are you?
How old are you?
Like,
and don't worry, I'm older than I look.
Yeah, like the level of sleaze there, where it's like, you guys are already in bed and half naked. We know that this has gone down already, but now it's like, now that she wants round 2 or round 3, now it's suddenly an issue. Like,
but dude, before they even get to her that moment, he's already like put his most recent round of moves on every woman he encounters in the movie. It's so
like
the doctor doing the autopsy. I got total like James Bond and Moneypenny vibes there, where he's like, I am not taking you out, but I am definitely stringing you along.
Right. And then you get like the weird, now would definitely be a lawsuit relationship with him and Agnes, right? Where he's like, he smacks her ass and she's like, there's cookies and milk in the fridge. It's like, what were the 80s?
Exactly.
Oh boy.
Yeah, no, I mean that's what it comes down to, man. It comes down to Dr. Chalice.
Well, so and then what's her name? Ellie hit the
Grimbridge, right?
Grimbridge.
Yeah.
So yeah, but like you want to paint her as like this young girl who gets swept up in his douchery, but the reality is her dad just got brutally murdered, and she's like, where do you want to sleep tonight, Dr. It's the wildest fucking turn that
you don't want to
I've
ask
seen.
That, Miss Grimbridge.
Yeah, that's a stupid question. Yeah, there's a theory out there that posits that she's already a fucking robot because at that point in the movie, because that's the only thing that explains that turnaround.
It's trauma bonding. It's trauma bonding.
Okay, so I have a headcanon I've built around this, right? Because it really doesn't make any fucking sense.
No, I know.
Right? So I think that Ellie and Mr. Grimbridge, which I don't think he ever gets a first name. I think it's just Mr. Grimbridge.
Harry Grimbridge.
Papa?
I retract my former statement.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I have it up. That's why I follow Wikipedia. They have it.
See, now whenever I hear Papa, I immediately think of Matthew
11.
Modine. Yeah. Yeah. Papa. So I don't think they had a particularly good relationship, because she asks him at one point, what did he say when he was at the hospital? And he said, Atkins says something to the effect of, I was only with him for a moment, but he said, tell Ellie I loved her. And she says, you're not a very good liar.
Yeah.
So I get this idea that, maybe they didn't have a good relationship. So, losing someone that close to you is awful, but is the blow kind of like softened a little bit by maybe the fact that they had become estranged? The guy did seem to be off his fucking rocker, maybe a little drunk. I don't know. Maybe that was just like an standard old man ranting and raving, because you do get to a certain age where it's like almost anytime you get upset, you seem drunk.
Yeah, fair.
So I don't know, but I do feel like maybe the loss wasn't so great that she can't grieve by way of fucking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
We've got Gabrielle Leon chiming in over here. Very happy to see you, Gabby.
What's up,
Gabriel.
Cellblock?
Sorry, I see
Another former
Gabriel.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Good old cell block.
So what about you, Gabby, with the characters?
Dude, my favorite character is probably one of the deeper cuts of the cast of characters.
Okay.
But I think the person who put, and like this is the best way of saying it, but put her whole entire fucking pussy into this role was Jadine Barber, who played Betty Kupfer, who was the wife of the salesman.
Buddy Kupfer.
Yeah, Buddy.
Let me tell you something. The way that she went about and like talking to Ellie about like, oh, my husband and this and that and my kid. Oh my God, my kid. And like she was so
Don't you go in the street.
God, she was so committed to being like the fucking psycho mom and like a little bit gold digger like wife. Who's like, oh God, I really hope he sells more of these masks and makes more money so I can like be more successful. And she's dressed in lace and pearls.
Oh,
like,
she's dressed to the nines. Yeah.
Yeah, but like that to me. And then when her son dies in the room and she's like, just
she's got the vapors.
I know, but like that performance to me was so iconic that it's the most underappreciated, I would say, because everybody's talking about the doctor and Ellie and the villains and everything, but she just went in.
Yeah, the Kupfers are awesome, all three of them. They're actually like a Willy Wonka family.
There's definitely a Willy Wonka vibe there.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's like a little. But like little Buddy's kind of like a Veruca Salt type, like I want to, my mask and this shit. Yeah. That's like a darker Wonka vibe when they're going through the factory.
There's two lines that Betty delivers that I think are just fucking awesome. The first one is when they're in the mask and Buddy comes up and he says something. Hang on, my microphone's weird.
Like when he wants to try on the mask.
That's better. No. Still off. Anyway, so Buddy,
Dave with the echo. Oh, maybe it's.
Is it you?
I don't know. It was happening even when you unplugged yours, but I've got my headphones down. I don't know.
Try it now.
Can you hear me now?
I think we're good now.
Good.
All
okay. Right. There's an old joke for the millennials out there. So they get into the mask factory and Buddy comes up and he says something. I can't remember what the fuck he says. And she says, I don't know. And it was like just so real. It was like whatever, man. I don't care. Just come here and make some more money for me. I love that. It's such a real thing, you're right. That's a really underappreciated
like
role.
The way she was talking with Ellie when they were out on the loading dock, like, oh, what about you? Like, what about your husband? And what is he doing? Like, it just felt so real and authentic and not overplayed. Like, I could imagine meeting that woman in that scenario and her being exactly that. Like, that was not overplayed. That was exactly who she imagined that woman was going to be. And she was through and through until the moment she died, which I'm assuming she died because she got stuck in the room with all the fake snakes and shit. So
right.
I guess she's dead. But like
nothing is as deadly as a fake snake.
I mean, they're not using real ass snakes in that. There's no way.
Well, there were real snakes in certain scenes for sure.
But they weren't poisonous.
Well, they probably weren't in the same scene. Well, there was one real snake that's crawling on her face.
Yeah.
But it was like a little garden snake
like
or something.
Corn snake or something. Like,
a little garden snake.
Real. Like it's not like actually gonna bite her, but I get it. It's the Indiana Jones snake pit. They're all actually legless lizards. No one's gonna hurt you there, but whatever.
With the glass between them. It is when you just look at everybody, the guys who just played all the, I'm going to use the word automaton. The guys who just played all the automatons, they did exactly what they had to do, but they did it. Every one of them was believable as this weird robot, but it was exactly that 80s idea of what an android would be like. This is pre data and TNG and all that when we start getting these ones that are human except for emotions. Everything they did was so cold and calculated. I love that the one guy just open mouth pours the gasoline on his head while he's sitting in the car, and it just everybody delivered exactly what they should have, and that was hilarious.
It was such a shocking death too, right?
It was.
Like because we didn't know it was an android at that point. Like,
Yeah.
like what is happening? I think and just I don't want to take more time than I am allotted here, but I want to give like a runners up prize to the woman who plays Teddy, who's the she's like the I don't know, the doctor that works with what's his face, Tom?
Oh, the Money Penny lady, the
Money Penny.
Yeah.
She's so good. Like every time that they went to her scene, she was like she was rolling with it. She was like sassy with him and like trying to get dinners and stuff out of it and being like, I don't know, you're crazy, whatever. And she figures it out by the end of it. Like it's not, she really does realize like, oh shit, there's something wrong here. And I feel like maybe she doesn't get enough love when we talk about these characters, but she was great.
It's, and all of those characters who just keep bringing just the awesome and just these hilarious tropes. We get to the point now where we've got to look at the villain of this, right? We've got to look at the guy who was the stand-in for Michael Myers in this movie, the big bad, Mr. Cochran, right? So obviously 1,000% different than any form of Michael Myers that we've ever had. But how does Conal Cochran work as a movie big bad for you, Dave?
I think he works. His like very suave, very articulate villain is it's almost James Bondian. To keep going back to that James Bond thing, it reminded me almost a little bit of, even though I know it came out later, Christopher Walken as Max Zorn in A View to a Kill. It's just like, it's so absurd and it makes absolutely no sense. But why? Because Walken sells it. And Dan O'Hurley, he's one of those guys. He's I'm pretty sure that his name was brought up when we did Irish actors in
I think so.
What is this on Geekmore?
Yeah.
A couple years back. He is, man, he's fucking awesome. And he never loses his cool. He never shouts. His perfect pompadour is never ruffled. And I think even the first time that we see him is so important, because he comes out of the car and he struts over and you hear like the stacked leather of his Italian shoes.
Yes.
And, he's very fine and very put together. And he says, oh, it was, she's getting the best care that we have, best care available. Don't worry about it. It's almost Donald Trump. He comes in and it's like, believe what I say, pay no attention to the man, behind the curtain. And it's like, dude, there's clearly something fucking weird going on here. But no, I'm Conal Cochran and I approve this message. It's weird, man. And it fucking works. And the fact that he plays it so straight, he never plays it for laughs, is kind of what makes it so over the top and makes it so funny. And I think you need that in this movie where like the characters have to believe what they're doing. And he totally believes in this ritualistic sacrifice, in the power of the stones at Stonehenge. Like I believe that this guy really is a druid and maybe lived a couple thousand years. I can believe it because Dan O'Hurley, he says so.
Yeah. What about you, Peter?
Yeah, I think that really like he has the gravitas that the whole movie kind of is anchored around, like because he's convincing and because even his cartoonishness, even in the we don't want to bore you with how we got the Stonehenge here. There's like a believability to his competence, you know what I mean? And so and I said it a couple of minutes ago, but it really does feel like this Wonka-esque vibe where it's an older man who's interested in creating toys and novelties and masks. That's kind of creepy in a weird witchy way, like in the same way we think of the witch in Hansel and Gretel building the house of candy to lure the kids. So it's kind of the same thing, like building the toys and the mask to lure the kids. And, so it's all hinges on the fact that if you were watching this, maybe when it came out, you could buy maybe that he isn't necessarily the villain, but he might be, there's like a little bit of credulity to his presence. And you always, you never doubt that he might get away with it throughout the whole movie. There's that. And even when,
and maybe did.
Yeah. Yes. Well, true. Yeah. And then even at the end, when he gets killed right before he does that little, which is so good for his character. It's almost like he knows that he can transcend the mortal coil and come back in some different way. And there's a lot maybe built, like maybe a lot that we're projecting onto it, but I think that's that's more to the credit of his performance as the character, that you could read into certain things and buy into certain things because of that execution. I think he's awesome, man. I think he's an asset. It's him and Atkins are like two heads of a coin in reality. Like, he's so much an elite. Atkins is so much like a blue collar guy. He's so much someone who is in control of the situation and prepared for every outcome, whereas Atkins is like by the seat of his pants every 5 seconds, like, oh, sorry, can't go, oh, help me out with this, that kind of thing. So they're great.
The seat of his pants, there are no underwear.
True.
It's just that bare ass on the seat of his pants.
These clothes will last at least another day.
At least another day. What'd you think about Cochran, Gabby?
I loved him. I want to kind of I think he made a great villain, and I love how he would like weirdly dip into his Irish accent every now and then when he wanted to be taken seriously. That was my favorite. But I kind of want to go back to something that Dave said earlier about whether Connell is supposed to be like the parody to Michael Myers, and like if that was the intention of who he was. I weirdly don't think that that's the case. I think that the Michael Myers that they were trying to bring into this was actually the automatons, and that Connell was like a new flavor of villain that they were trying to introduce into this anthology. Because if we think about it as an anthology that's building on these stories of horror, it seems like it was the intention, right?
Right.
That like Connell was the new, not just like this dumb, deaf and blind murderer. He's calculating, he's cold, he has a reason, he can explain to you the reason. Michael Myers couldn't do that. Michael Myers couldn't tell you why he was killing you. He sniffs blood and he's going after it. And Connell's not like that. And I feel like the automatons were more taking the place of that, where they were just like sent, they're on a mission, anybody who gets in the way of the mission gets wiped out. And it's always in the most brutal way possible. Yes. Like pulling somebody's head off. Like just cold, like boop, it's coming off. That's a Michael Myers move. That's not Connell doesn't work that way. His is more nuanced. His is more planned and calculated. So I love him as a villain, but I don't necessarily just go. I just wanted to, like, when Dave said that, I was like, hold on.
Yeah.
I have thoughts.
I think you have a point there.
Yeah, I think I like the James Bond comparison, and I think the James Bond villain comparison. I kind of like, in the same way that you're saying that, it's like that argument. Me and my best friend occasionally argue about who's a better villain, right? Lex Luthor or the Joker, and that's where this is. That Michael Myers Cochran thing becomes that, because Cochran is a Lex Luthor. This is a guy who's going to get his way, and his pants are going to stay clean when he does it. I think that there are so many things that make him great. The throwaway line about not you don't want to know how we got it. The golf clap, the stuff like that. The Irish accent, that I rewound it because I was trying to figure out, like, if I dozed off. Like, I mean, no. I know
and
who he is.
Say it. The subtitle suddenly change and go in Irish accent.
Yes.
And then it delivers.
And so, but I think that James Bond villain comparison is what truly makes him a great bad guy, down to the fact that when you go and you look at the moment at the end of those movies when the big bad realizes that James Bond won, they just take it with grace. I've been bested, but my plan is already in effect. That whole thing. It's the Ozymandias thing. I'm not a comic book villain. I executed my plan 30 minutes ago. That thing. He knew, he was about to die, but he also knew that this guy was stuck in a town with a 6 o'clock curfew where none of the phones go out. And how was he going to call any of these news stations that we see are broadcasting at least all over the Midwest?
Right.
We hear the radio broadcast. We get the little towns that all look surprisingly like Haddonfield. And but they're in different states according to the captions. And so he had no reason to freak out. He'd made it as far as he needed to make it. He was going to have his revenge. And maybe who knows, when Stonehenge combines with the lasers that its buttons shoot, who knows if that kills the people who created it. He could have been sent to a higher plane of being for all we know, because he definitely seemed to place himself in exactly the right spot to get zapped. He wasn't afraid of it. So just that when I was talking about what made it scary being the marketing scheme that went into it, the fact that this is the guy that masterminded all that. He is extremely different than your average, than any slasher that's out there, but it doesn't make him any less scary as a bad guy. And that's a really cool thing to pull off, to make, like I said, a Lex Luthor type character scary. That's incredible. They did a really great job with that. This is the first time I'd seen this one in a really long time, and I really was impressed with how great he was at that role. You guys made the Willy Wonka comparison, and as soon as you said it, I said, yes, that's what was on the tip of my brain, that entire movie. Yeah, let's take a tour. Don't you want to come? Right. Oh, don't get that one, get this one. Yeah. And he's so playful and everything with the kids. But then when he just, turn the TV on to channel 3, and you see that they're locking that family up, it's like, this dude is a stone cold killer.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that is, it's what makes Dr. No so great, and so many of these people, because they're not just psychotic, they're cold and calculating.
What's crazy?
Sorry, my love.
Go ahead.
He doesn't see this as a murder. And that's even more fucked up.
Right.
For him,
he's justified.
He has self-justice. He's like, look, we're at that point where we need to make these sacrifices. Otherwise, he never explains what could possibly go wrong, but he just sorry, it has to happen. You got selected. In fact, you should consider yourself lucky.
Yeah. Well, who knows if this is like a sort of like Cabin in the Woods, where like the ancient ones, you're coming out and it's like just this giant hand that comes out and bam, slams down on you,
saving the rest of the world from like some type of eldritch horror from obliterating humanity. And maybe he's like, it's got to be the kids. Sorry, I don't make the rules.
Yeah. It's crazy when you think about where the sequels ended up going, that if they would have planned this out, if they could have somehow known that they could have potentially tied in all the Curse of Thorn or the Mark of Thorn and all this kind of stuff. There's probably a way that Michael Myers could be some kind of witchcraft creation. That's why. But if they had to go that route and explain everything, which I don't love those movies, but the point is, like, if only they would have known. It's neither here nor there, but you could see there's like elements that could have woven into each other and made for a shared universe of sorts.
Right, which is hilarious because Halloween, the original, exists as a movie in this universe, right? So they immediately, within the first little bit of the movie, they immediately let you know this is a place where Michael Myers' Halloween is a movie. Like, it could be right next to you,
It's funny because like we're talking about, this movie is getting a second look now, and I couldn't help but think of it while we watched Halloween Ends recently, where I'm like, I liked Halloween Ends. Gabby did not like Halloween Ends. I feel like I'm definitely in the minority, but I could see it now, go years in the future where we're like removed from it, where people can look back and go, oh, okay, I get it now. And I really believe that the Halloween Ends is going to have that kind of moment where people at the time were like, Halloween 3, get this shit out of here, and now people are like, oh, I get it now.
I 100% agree with you. Like, if you follow us on Instagram, you caught the upside down video. I don't know. I uploaded it twice.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
It wouldn't stay upright. So to hell, enjoy. But
they got pills for that now.
Yeah. I need to watch it again because I'm in that same place with Halloween Ends. And Dave, you haven't caught it yet, right?
No.
Andrew Chacon saying he's conflicted too. Yeah, dude, that's where I am. I need to watch it again. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And you get torn. And am I mad that it wasn't what I thought it was going to be? Or should I be okay with that? Or would I have also been mad if it was what I thought it was going to be and been like, oh, boo, I called it. It was a no-win situation there. So yeah, I'm still stuck on it. I'm not willing to say that I dislike Halloween Ends yet.
Yeah. It's funny because I really think that that you could take that trilogy, the whole trilogy, and in a way, the first 3 Halloween movies, Halloween 1, Halloween 2, and Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, it's kind of like the same thing. Like people are like, Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, okay, and Halloween Ends, what the heck? It's like it follows a similar pattern in that regard.
It really does.
It's interesting, yeah. Yeah. And what are you doing, David? Go watch that movie. It's on Peacock, for Christ's sake.
Yeah,
you don't have to go anywhere.
I know. I'm swamped with work.
Fake horror fan, dude.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
We have to cut a corner off your card.
Yeah,
if you don't watch it in the next couple days.
Cut it.
Got it. I promise I will see it before Halloween.
By the way,
That's
connecting the two universes, I loved how in Halloween 2018 and Kills, you see the masks.
Yes,
all the Season of the Witch mask. I love that so much. I wonder if people like who didn't, maybe who never watched Season of the Witch were like even stumbled on that at all. I thought that was great.
Yeah. That was nice. And they also mentioned, the familial connection there, like, oh, isn't she his sister or something? Like,
yes,
that's just something some people invent.
Yeah, I love that.
I do like how, like, even though there's like this erasure of canon there, where it's like an acknowledgement of the canon, kind of like what Star Trek did, where it's like, no, we're not erasing what happened. It's an alternate timeline.
Right.
It's like, oh, you explained just enough. Okay, thank you.
And apparently, I didn't know this, but Jamie Lee Curtis is the voice of the curfew announcer in Season of the Witch.
Is she?
Yeah.
Really?
Fun fact.
That's great.
Well, actually, and my internet was going in and out as we were doing characters, but so I didn't chime in at all. But my favorite character actually is the actress who plays Annie Brackett in the first Halloween. Nancy Keys. Yeah, she plays his wife. She plays Linda Chalice. And if you did not know that she played like this, like someone flighty, really like living life up kind of girl in the first Halloween, you would think that she was like some like really uptight spinster in this movie. And it's like, no, she sells it, like I love to see that connection in these movies where it's like, yeah, it's connected because it's connected and that's it. You don't really have to think about it much more than that.
And it does feel like current anthologies, right? Like, I'm thinking about the American Horror Story franchises where they continue to use the same actor over and over again, even though the story has changed. Like, it feels very much in line with that.
Yeah. Where's Evan Peters? Where's he this time?
Exactly. Yeah. Where's Evan Peters?
Just give me more PJ Souls.
Yeah. So this leaves us with only one more thing to do before we rate our movie, which is to talk about the kills. And I always like to leave this last because we can
good
Stephanie
call.
Erickson came in and with
Yeah.
an excellent call. Yeah.
The Hill House and
Hill
Mike
House.
Flanagan universe. Yeah.
That's true.
Yep. We are almost done here at Casa Ulloa with the Midnight Club. So it's been rather good. We just finished up an episode where Thomas Elliott, and I got the name right this time, I think, was in, and it was like, there he is. No, not Thomas Elliott, Henry Thomas. I fucked it up again.
It's the same way you messed it up last time.
I did, damn it. And I was like, I'm so smart. I did it right this time.
You almost got it. You almost got it.
Yeah, not even close. So I always like to talk about the kills last because, like, to me, that's what brings us back to horror time and time again, is like these ridiculously inventive kills. So I've thrown it to Daniel. I've thrown it to Gabby. I'm going to throw it to Peter now. What, in your opinion, like, is there any kill that like stands out as like, that's the fucking one, that's the money shot?
Yeah, for me, it's a toss up between two, but I'll give it to what's her name, the shop owner who gets blasted in the hotel room.
Well,
Marge
that's
Gutman.
when that switch is
Marge Gutman, because like it's great the first time you see it, but I think it's better subsequently because there's some tension when she's fussing with her little bobby pin, where when you're watching it the first time, you're like, oh, you're not thinking about it, and until it gets blasted, you're like, oh shit. But when she's like just this time I watch it now, when she's fussing with it, I'm like, oh my God, you dumbass. She's fussing. And then the payoff of that is really strong and creative. So the blast of laser into the mouth, right?
Yeah.
And then the scene where it's like the slow, like, hands to reveal those weird blood-filled eyeballs that are, and by the way, and so you have to think about, why are her eyes red? Because this is not just a blast of laser, it's like some magic, right? And then like all the bugs in the hair and the feet shaking in the bed and the lips splayed open. It's such a gruesome shot from an unlikely source, like a blast from a button is so good. And I think it sets up the stakes for the movie. Like when you see what the button can do, now every time you see the mask, you're like,
It's funny because I remembered that something was going to happen when she was messing with it. So I got both sides of that. Because I remembered that something was going to happen. So I was like, just leave it alone. I got the tension, and then I still got the scare when the laser came shooting out of it, because I completely forgot what it did to her. I could not for the life of me remember how this button was going to get her, just that messing with it was going to kill her. So then I still got the when the laser shoots out.
And it sets up the scene where Connell's telling little buddy, like, not that one hasn't gotten through final processing yet.
Right.
And so when he brings
what's
the
final
mask,
processing,
and he brings the mask and he goes, and this one has the blah 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 whatever, and you're like, it really is cool with the callbacks in that regard. So I think it's a gruesome kill and like a turning point kill for sure.
Gabby?
My favorite was I guess not the first, but the second kill, which was Harry Grimbridge, the guy who kind of calls sound the alarms that something's going on with these masks. Like, something about watching it, to me, it felt like such an inventive kill, right? Because technically what's happening is he's getting his skull crushed,
Yeah.
But it's not like a crush in like you saw with Michael Myers doing with, foot stomping people and just splattering their heads or whatever. Like, it's so weird, like how the android like almost pulls up the bridge of his nose, and that shard like goes into his skull and kills him. It feels very Beetlejuice, if you know what I'm talking about, where he like, stretches it out. And Like that to me, that was so like, oh, we're really doing this, huh? We're
Yeah.
we're gonna be really inventive with the kills. And if there's anything that I can say about Season of the Witch is that the kills are very inventive. More so than I think with Halloween 1 and 2. Because Halloween 1 and 2 is just like straight slasher, you know?
Well, there's the tub kill.
Well, yeah, but like, but for the most part, the kills in this one are like, who could have seen the laser coming?
Yeah,
right.
Like none of us, we knew something was going to happen to her when she pulled out that bobby pin and started fucking with it, but nobody was like, and here comes the laser to shoot her face off. Like, no one knew. So anyway, that one is the one that I love the most because I remember it setting the tone for like, oh, these are going to be fun. These are going to be fun to watch.
Yeah. For me, it is and will forever be just, man, little buddy getting his head melted, man. That whole scene, the tension of wonder, because we at this point we've seen a button shoot the laser, so you're like, okay, is it just going to shoot a laser through his head, or you're waiting to see what the combination of the mask with the Silver Shamrock button on it, with the with the TV making the weird broadcast. You're waiting to see what happens, and then he reaches those hands up and he starts clawing at the mask, and it's become part of him. And he just pulls down, and you see that he is now this weird pumpkin, and it's just. And then you're, oh man, his head's melting, right? So his head hits the ground. Oh no, it's not just melting; it's also infested with bugs and snakes. What? Don't care. That's awesome. It's such a weird thing to go. Okay, so when the lady messed with the button, shot a laser in her mouth. Great special effect. When the kid puts on the mask, it fills his head with bugs and snakes and melts. Yeah. That's dope. And it's just that scene, and I think that part of it is what we discussed earlier, where it's coupled with that idea of sitting there and watching your son's head melt inside a mask, but just the effects when he reaches up and pulls on that mask just get me. I love that so much. And and then, like I said, to just go one step further with it. Yeah, they could have just melted his face, and that could have been it. But then to have the snakes come out, and one of them's, a rattlesnake or whatever, and we see it bite Big Buddy. Yes. that was like peak fun horror movie kill right there. No blood, not a drop of blood, but remarkably scary, remarkably gruesome, and very creative. So that one, and then not necessarily one particular kill, but I do love that when the automatons die, the yellow goo, like
it almost reminded me of Phantasm. Yeah.
Yes. I knew I wasn't wrong in that.
Yeah.
That's what my notes just say. Yellow goop equals Phantasm, because that's as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, it's the Phantasm goop. This is great. And so I did like it whenever an automaton got wailed on, because I got to see that.
Yellow goo.
So I think my favorite one is Mrs. Gutman. But because we talked about Mrs. Gutman, I'm going to talk about my second favorite one, which is Ellie. And although we don't actually get to see Ellie as Ellie die, we do get to see automaton Ellie die. And what I love so much about that scene is that, like, he saves her and they run away, and we're so caught up in the action of what's going on in that moment. I do think that that's a brilliant piece of like editing and storytelling there, because the first time you watch this, you're really not paying attention to Ellie's face. You've got no idea what's going on. And anyone who tells me that they knew that she was an automaton from the very first time they watched it, the moment that he saves her, I'll show you a fucking liar. All right.
Yeah, of course.
because it's impossible for you to know that. Again, because the story makes no fucking sense. Right? Like how quickly can you do these things? That's I don't know, but I accept it. And because I accept it, it makes that turn where finally they get in the car, they get some downtime, and he looks at her, right? And I'm sure, you know, they're gonna bang one out again. And yet there's Ellie with that like blank look on her face. And I'm like, I don't think that's the, you know, slide on over, sweetheart face. You know, that is the, you know, emotionless blank face of an automaton. And it's like, oh fuck, he's about to die, isn't he? And then they play it for laughs.
Yeah.
That's the moment that you can play it for laughs, because he rips her arm off, right? And then the arm comes back after he's like, and then they do the whole you know, the alien scene with the head, right? Like Ian Holm as fuck, what was the name of the alien? The robot. No, not Bishop.
Oh, Bishop's from 2.
Yeah, Bishop's from 2. Shit, I can't remember his name.
Dude.
Fuck.
We know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, him, you know, that scene of his head being put up, they clearly dug a hole in the ground.
Right.
And had her head sticking out. And it fucking works, man. It sells the effect. Right. And then he's in the car and the hand reaches out for him. It's very Evil Dead.
Yeah.
You know, before Evil Dead 2 had come out. You know, it's awesome. It's really great. It's kind of funny. And what's that?
The android from Alien?
Ash, it is Ash. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I'm glad you said that, because I was like, yeah, Ash is the guy from Evil Dead. Like stupid man. So yeah, I love that kill, you know, because it's like that last one right before we get to the grand finale, where it's like, you know, they're here, they're coming, and they're here. You know, it's man, I love it. You know, it's a great kill, and it's, I think, a great way to end the movie.
And that's the other body snatcher reference, by the way.
What's that?
The end, like the end where Tom Atkins is screaming at the
at the people on the news. So I mean, is there anything? Were there any glaring holes in what we've done here that anybody wants to address?
I have a hot take.
Service. Go for it.
Okay,
I have a hot take. I'm not saying that it's more iconic, but I'm saying I like it more. The score in this movie.
This is the tremendous score.
Yeah, this is one of John Carpenter's bangers, man. Fuck, he's so goddamn good.
It's an amazing score, and there's even a part of it that bums me out. That every time I watch the movie, it's like the only thing about the movie that bothers me, but I recognize the effectiveness of it, where it's like halfway through, it's when the automatons come for Ellie in the hotel or the motel, and there's this piercing, and you think it's like a fire smoke alarm going off, and it lasts for a good solid 4 minutes, like of not letting up in the movie. And every time I hear it, I'm like, they're gonna keep doing this, and I'm like, yeah, but it does create that tension that something just went off, and you think it's an alarm at first, but it's just part of the score, and it's awesome. He's the best, dude.
He really is. He's the master of the synthesizer, man.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
He's touring now. I wonder if that's in his set list.
Shit.
He's touring?
Is he coming here? No, he's not coming here. No, we never get anyone.
No way.
But imagine if that's in it.
Well, that's going to take us to just 4 minutes of
just the one key.
Just holding the one down and drinks a whole beer. So that's going to take us to the part in the show where we rate this movie. Now, we always like to remind everybody that we only rate a movie against itself. So while this is part of the Halloween franchise, whatever rating we give it here does not have to reflect at all on what we think of other Halloween movies, which is why for each movie we create a unique rating system. And for this one, we had a little pre-show discussion, and I believe we decided to go with Spooky Silver Shamrocks. So out of a possible 5 Spooky Silver Shamrocks, what do you give this one, Peter?
I'm giving it a 5.
Yeah,
I love this movie so much, and it's its own thing for me. And I kind of like the fact that it has this messy history. It makes me like it even more when I see people getting tripped up over it. I like it even more. It's that good.
All right. So we got that one. Gabby, what about you?
It's a 3 for me.
Fair.
I think it's like
That's
you
higher than I
gotta
thought you were gonna give it.
Same.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, I was flirting with a 2, but I didn't. I feel like I like it a little bit more, and especially after this conversation, I think I appreciate the kills more, and like I said earlier, the iconography is just it's so good that I feel like it deserves a little bit more. I mean, it's still trash, but it's like the type of trash. It's like eating hot Cheetos. You're like, I know this is trash, but
right.
I still like
Yes.
it, I guess so. It gets a 3. It gets a 3 for kills and for like standout iconography.
Okay.
Dave?
I'm gonna go 4.5 for this one. I can't give it the full 5 because I don't think it's a perfect movie. Because I do think that you can have a movie with a completely ridiculous premise and still have it make a little bit more sense. You know, like I don't think those two things are mutually exclusive. Like you can have a movie that's just bonkers, but also it mostly makes sense. Like I think the Dread from 2012 or whatever it was with Carl Urban as Judge Dredd is a perfect example of that. Like the movie is just fucking wild the whole time. And yet like one thing follows the next and it's like, okay, I'm with you. I'm following this thing all the way until we get to floor 200 and Mama just fucking explodes. Right? Like it's fucking awesome. And I think this movie's awesome, but there's that one glaring thing that it's like, it doesn't really make sense. And I'm mostly okay with that, but I can't call it perfect because of that. So I'm going to dock a 0.5 star. And like really like 2 of these fucking stars is just based on Halloween vibe alone.
Shamrock.
Yeah.
Yes.
Shamrock.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Spooky Silver Shamrocks. You know,
2 more days till Halloween. So I've been back and forth with this one a lot, and I feel like I say that every week because I've had people ask me, you know, like, well, what are you gonna? It's like eating hot Cheetos. Perfect. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
I have people ask, you know, like, what are you gonna rate it? I don't know because I genuinely, my ratings are the Michael Scott quote. You know, I start a sentence and I don't know where it's gonna go. So this movie, I thought I kind of knew, but as this show tends to do, I'm gonna go a little bit higher than this. So I was flirting with the 3.5, but I've had a lot of fun with this. And it is a solid, it's a Halloween movie, not just from the franchise, but this is a good movie to watch in October. And I know Dave watched with his son. Like this is one that I may watch with my 11-year-old. Now that I've just kind of seen it all again, it's like, all right, close your eyes for close your eyes for the nipple, right? So
I did fast forward through that part. Yeah, I don't need his mother asking me. It already happened with Purple Rain. I totally forgot about that scene with Vanity. And that scene ended and he goes, hey, can we watch that part again?
Oh yes. But so I'm gonna
like, no, you little perv.
I'm gonna let this be for Spooky Silver Shamrocks. It's a lot of fun to watch. We've got a great villain. We get some great kills. I mean, if nothing, the creativity of just pouring the buttons on them after he's, by the way, that whole scene, and I forgot to mention that the whole scene of them infiltrating where they walk behind the moving rack of masks like something straight out of a Looney Tunes cartoon.
Yes, dude.
Steal the box of or reprogram the computer with nobody noticing, even though he's in a circle of like 14 of them. And
that's
then
such a good scene.
And pours the bucket. And they all start misfiring. That's genius, and it's hilarious, and it was fun, and I loved it. And so this is for Silver Spooky Shamrocks for me. It was I enjoyed it, and it is definitely one that I'm going to put back in my Halloween rotation.
All right.
We
that's
also
a
got
win.
the joy of like that's the real joy of this movie is talking about the nonsense, and I think that
Yes.
elevates it for most people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's one of those.
I agree. So if I mathed correctly, this gives us 4.125 stars, but we don't do decimals here.
Correct.
So we're just gonna round that to 4 spooky silver shamrocks.
There it is.
Yeah, I don't know why I keep defaulting to stars today.
Too many
I don't
S's.
I don't think I've ever done this before. Yeah, welcome to Shiver, a freshman podcast. Thank you so very much, Gaby, Peter. We love having you all on. We don't have to wait till next October. That maybe I'll hit you up in a couple of months.
Hit me up.
See what's coming out soon. Barbarian should be coming out streaming soon. So I don't know if maybe that's something y'all.
Hey, there's a lot of spooky Christmas stuff that comes out.
That's true. Oh wait, there's this one with David Harbour.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Silent Night.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a horror movie as much as it is Death Wish with Santa Claus.
Yes.
I'm here for that, dude.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm not
here for that.
downplaying.
Yeah.
Have you guys done Krampus?
We did.
Krampus
Yeah.
last year, yeah.
Strong.
Yeah.
We didn't do Black Christmas yet.
I've never seen Black Christmas.
Oh, we should do Black
Both of
Christmas
them
then.
both of them are
that
great.
way you can watch it for the first time.
Maybe
and
we'll do that.
the original. Don't do Black Xmas.
Gotcha.
I like them both.
I'm adding it to the list.
I don't know. But the new one didn't have Margot Kidder.
No, it didn't. You got me there.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
or Olivia Hussey.
If you've enjoyed this show, make sure you head to shiverpod.com where you can find links to all of our social media. We are on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, everything at ShiverPod. All the links are at shiverpod.com. You can also find links to wherever you want to listen to our episodes, link to the YouTube channel where you can watch us live on YouTube and Facebook every Wednesday at 9/8 Central. We will be wrapping up spooky season next week with something very, very special. And we're super excited about it. It is bound to be our most off the rails episode of all time. So hang around so you can check that one out. And if you like the show, share an episode, get a friend to listen. It would mean the world to us. We appreciate each and every one of you guys. Thank you to everybody who chimed in today. This is the most comments we've gotten in a while. We appreciate all you guys watching tonight.
Very nice. Peter, Gaby, you have anything you want to plug?
No, you can find me anywhere online at Attack Peter. Got a bunch of fun stuff coming out real soon and some big news coming out before the end of the year.
Oh, nice.
Excellent.
Very nice. Gaby?
You can follow me at Double Trouble, which is an impossible thing to say online because it's not spelled that way. So somebody will put it somewhere for you to follow me.
DBL.TRBL, is that it?
TRBLE.
TRBLE, okay.
Trouble, yeah. I'm working in video games now, so go play Escape Academy, which is one of the games we just put out recently. We're coming out with DLC very soon, so you're gonna want to, if you like escape rooms, you'll like this game. So go play it. It's free on Xbox Game Pass. Just go.
Awesome. Okay. There you go. All right. So on behalf of all of us here at Shiver, fright you very much.